Over the last 24 hours, heat has come in this direction. Not so much because people were anticipating that I was going to go all off on Dak Prescott. He put forth an absolutely horrific performance against the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday night. Let's just get that straight. On Sunday Night Football in the nationally televised games on NBC television, network television, Dak Prescott threw 3 interceptions. I predicted he would throw 2. He threw 3. Okay. And with about 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Dallas Cowboys were down 42-10. It was a romp. It was a stomp. It was a beatdown. And it was at the hands of Dak Prescott, amongst others. Now, clearly, the Dallas Cowboys defense didn't show up. The 49ers ran roughshod over them. They punked them. They out-physicaled them. And we've heard rumblings from George Kittle and Micah Parsons snapping back at George Kittle, talking about, oh, we're going to remember, we're going to take it personal. Micah Parsons is that dude. I don't underestimate anything that he says or does and what he brings to the table. San Francisco 49ers seemed like they figured him out and stuff like that. We get all of that, too. I understand it. But there's a bigger story, dare I say a more sensitive one, that's developing or has developed with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has been so subpar, so uninspiring, so small in big moments that you actually have people that are vacillating between saying he's done in Dallas to saying, let's have some compassion. Let's have some compassion. I had a friend of mine call me and literally begged me to be nice. And he ain't even a Dallas Cowboy fan. Seriously. Called me Monday morning, hours before I showed up on my day job, ESPN's First Take, which airs every weekday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern Standard Time over the airwaves of ESPN television. Actually called me and said, Stephen A., please lay off of Dak Prescott. You know what he brought to my attention? He brought to my attention Dak's battles with anxiety and depression. And thinking about the month that we're living in right now, Mental Health Month, it's what I call it. It's what a lot of people call it, where we talk about the subject of depression. We talk about anxiety. We've witnessed stories, about people taking their own lives, doing harm to themselves, sometimes fatally, obviously, sometimes not. I felt compelled to adopt that position. Now, it's not going to stop me from doing my job. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it ain't a damn mongoose. If you played like garbage, I got to say you played bad. But there's a glee and a joyfulness that I take from the Dallas Cowboys stinking up the joint because Dallas Cowboy fans get on my last damn nerves. But I say that in all seriousness out of fun. It's oxymoronic to use those two words in the same sentence, but it is applicable. As serious as I am, I'm just having fun. It's sports. You never remember growing up as a kid as a sports fan and you sitting up there and you want to get at your friends who root for certain teams, or you want to boo against other teams, or you want to, just berate them and all of this other stuff. It's all in fun. That's what fandom is all about. But it's taken on a life of its own. And I want to be the first one to stand up here and say, I'm sensitive to that when it comes to Dak Prescott, because I looked at his face on that sideline. And I have to admit, I really, really didn't think about all the things that he has been through until one of my boys called me a few hours before I went on First Take. And then I went back because I obviously DVR the games. And I went back and I watched Dak Prescott again, and I looked at this blank look on his face, and I looked at teammates that were standing away from him, and I looked at people that were keeping their distance from him, and you saw the level of disgust and annoyance and disappointment, and you found yourself wondering how that affected him. And I got to tell y'all something. I'm a diehard sports fan. I'm even more rigid and dogged and committed to my professional responsibilities. But I'm a human being first. I'm a man who fears God first. And believe it or not, even though it doesn't seem that way on television and what have you, I do have compassion all the time. And I think there are times when it's important to showcase that and put that on display, because God knows the world that we're living in today, it's needed. Dak Prescott in 2020 admitted that through the quarantine, when COVID hit, he was experiencing emotions that he'd never felt before. His quote was, "Anxiety, the main one." And then honestly, a couple of days before my brother passed away, I would say I started experiencing depression. Those were Dak Prescott's words. And you know the scary part that really, really hit me? It was when he said it was a couple of days before his brother passed. Ladies and gentlemen, his brother didn't pass away, as simple and plain and as awful as that is. His brother committed suicide. And he talked about how when he lost his mom 7 years earlier, his brother was having trouble then. If I'm being totally honest, I know the feeling. Anybody who knows me knows that in June 1st, 2017 to be exact, Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Anybody who knows me knows what that day is. That was the day I lost the greatest woman I've ever known. I lost the greatest human being I've ever known. And that was Janet Smith, my mother. And when I tell you, when I read Dak Prescott's words, when I went back and read what he said and talked about the difficulty his brother had, ladies and gentlemen, I can relate. I never thought about killing myself. But for 2 years, every single day at some moment in time, I wished I was dead. That is how bad my life was without my mother. And I'll tell you something. And I've said this privately to many, many people. You know one of the worst parts about losing my mother, because the reality is that she battled cancer for a long time and she was suffering. But one of the things that really, really, really raked my soul, it wasn't just that she passed away, because her passing away, at least she was no longer in pain. At least she wasn't suffering. It was just about the fact that I was going to miss her. But that's the selfish part. The other part of me was happy that it was over for her because she wasn't suffering any longer. But the part about me that I couldn't move beyond for so long, where I actually had to go to therapy, because we know how black men can be about therapy, at least at a time in the past, maybe not now, but in the past, men, period, but especially black men. Therapy, that's not something we want to hear. We want to sit down before somebody and just let all of our feelings out and let it flow. We didn't want to do that. But when it hit home for me was the fact that I was single. You see, when you get married, supposedly, that baton, that proverbial mantle, you're passing to somebody else. Your mama's passing it to her. And it's your responsibility right now to take care of my baby boy. And when you're married and you've committed your life to somebody else, what you've done is you've embraced that reality. And so as painful and as much as it hurts to lose your mama, you found somebody else that's supposed to be an extension of mama, to at least to some degree, to facilitate taking care of you in a fashion you're accustomed to, whether it be mentally, emotionally, or beyond. But when you don't have that, when you're single, you're on your own. Because since you never made that commitment, but you knew you had that kind of unconditional love from your mama, the belief that you have in your soul is, I'll never find this. And you know when it hit me? When the casket was lowering into the ground. That is when it was over. And I felt it was over. And I wanted to die. because she meant that much to me. And I knew that for the rest of my life, I would never, ever, ever have anyone like that again. So when Dak Prescott said that about his brother after the loss of his mother, I could relate. But then I extended it to Dak Prescott and I said, damn, how is he feeling? And then all of a sudden you find yourself going on the air, and in one hat, I got the cowboy hat on, I got the shades, and I'm laughing about the Cowboys, and then I'm speaking about Dak Prescott, but I catch myself because I don't want that brother to ever feel like he's in that kind of abyss, that life is that low. I might mock and make fun and cheer about a Cowboys loss, but that's just me as a fan, having fun against Cowboy fans. I wish him no harm. I wish him no ill will. I want him to get paid. I want him to live a fruitful life. And hell, if it meant him being better fully, hell, I might even wish for the Cowboys to win. As much as that would be torture for me, having to listen to these damn Cowboy fans. It drives me nuts. But certain things would be worth it. Because certain things are just bigger than games and bigger than fun, even if it's all in good fun. Doesn't mean I'm going to root for the Cowboys. Doesn't mean I'm going to root for Dak Prescott to win football games and not mess up or whatever the case may be. I just want him to be all right. And I'm not saying that I saw any indication or believe there was an indication to wonder about otherwise. I'm just saying, looking at him on that sidelines and looking at how people were keeping their distance for him and imagining how alone he was going to feel. While I was watching the game, I didn't notice it like that. But when my boy called me the next morning and I went back and DVR'd it and I looked at Dak Prescott, I got worried. So I just wanted to make sure I stated that. And I want to dedicate this episode of the Stephen A. Smith Show to tackling some of these issues to make sure that points are clarified for the betterment of everybody, because that's what we're going to do. I brought up Dak Prescott. I still ain't root for them damn Cowboys now because of their fans. But I don't want Dak Prescott to be the cause of them going down. I'll call it like I see it. It's big boy, big girl rules. But there's a heightened level of sensitivity that has to come with it, particularly in a month like this where we're discussing mental health more than we ever do. And we're being honest about the feelings and the emotions that come with it.